a little bit of backstory on this era. It's right in the middle of a lot of different things happening in the world. There are several different eras that it overlaps with. One of those eras is the medieval era. So the very end of the medieval ages is whenever this will start taking place. So you still have that type of knights and nobility, where at the end of that, things have settled down with who's going to own what land in Europe, who is going to be protecting those lands for a certain king. This is the time of kings and queens and different people that do things in the name of those kings and queens. We will see a lot of that. Another thing that this era will overlap with is a time when new ideas were coming out. That's called the Renaissance. The Renaissance is going to be a large part of the Age of Contact. And of course, something called the Age of Discovery, and that is the prime example of what the Age of Contact is. People will be discovering new places in a new world, and that is exactly what we will be talking about when the old world meets the new world. So let's just take a look at a world map, the continents that are considered to be in the Eastern Hemisphere. That's the old world. The new world is going to be anything that's on the Western Hemisphere. So anything that you see over here, that's the old world meeting across the Atlantic Ocean to the new world. The main countries that will be involved are going to be England, which will be considered Great Britain, France, and for Texas, Spain. Spain here is the main country that we were going to be talking about with Texas history. So this is the New World. You can see how the different territories are broken down by who is going to go and discover these different places and claim them for their country. So Great Britain will have their English colonies and the Hudson Bay Company. Then France is going to have this large territory of Louisiana and also New France. And then this is where you'll see Texas involved. This is Spain's territory. They call it New Spain. They also have some other territories over here in South America. Now, whenever Columbus first sails, we're going to see he's going to land in this area first. What's the motivation? That means, why did these people want to go and explore for their kings and queens or for their country? We call them the 3 G's. The 3 G's are God, gold, and glory. So let me explain what that means. The first goal is the God goal. That's a religious goal. So in Europe, the predominant religion was the Catholic religion that is a Christian religion. So they are going to have a goal that says, hey, we need to go into the rest of the world. We need to find new people that we can convert over to our religion. The next goal that you see here is gold. I don't think I really have to explain this in much detail because that's an economic goal. That is a way that they can build wealth. They want to find cities of gold. So in this case, they're not looking for ways to make money specifically. They are looking for gold. So the gold goal is a very literal goal here. And then the last goal that they have is the glory goal. They want to be able to say that they're the ones who discovered something in the name of their king or queen, and usually name whatever they have found, whatever discovery they have made. They want to be able to put the name of their king or their country on it to say, hey, this is what we did. So the glory is just to get the credit for it, just to make a name for themselves. All right, some words you need to know in order to understand what we're going to talk about is expedition and exploration. So exploration, that one's usually pretty easy. That is whenever someone travels in order to discover a new place or to discover what a new place is like. So it may be a place that they personally have never been to before. They're going to figure out where is it and what's it like. All right, so back up here to expedition. An expedition is a journey with a purpose. So it's a trip with a goal. They're going to set out on a trip, on a journey, with a specific reason in their minds, a specific goal that they want to accomplish. All right, so this next one, you need to understand what a conquistador is. So when we talk about the Spanish explorers, the people that are going out and doing the exploring in the name of the king or in the name of the queen or in the name of their country are going to be conquistadors. Now, these conquistadors, they were part of the Spanish nobility usually. They had proven their valor. They had usually led different soldiers in different battles or in war. They had proven that they could protect the king's or queen's lands. So they were soldiers, but they were also adventurers. They set out to go and explore. So we also call them Spanish explorers. And they're going to search for wealth and land in the New World for their king and their queen. And their main motivation will be those 3 G's, whichever one is going to inspire their king or queen to fund their expedition. All right, so the first person that we see in our part of the world is going to be Christopher Columbus. So starting our timeline in 1492, Christopher Columbus, he sailed to find a new route to the Asian continent. He was trying to figure out a quicker way to make money. So making money, he ends up in Spain asking for permission and for backing to be able to go on his trip. And he thinks that he's landed in India, but instead he lands in the New World. So he tries to sail around the world and runs into a continent. And then we're going to call that the Americas. So when he gets to the New World, he's going to bring some things with him, and he's going to take some things back to the Old World. And whenever we exchange ideas, beliefs, goods, trade anything between the 2 different worlds at this point, the New World and the Old World, we are going to end up calling that the Columbian Exchange after Christopher Columbus. Now, some of the things that he brought with him were not nice things. We'll talk about that in class. So in 1519, one of the first things that we want to talk about is what happens in Mexico. And that is whenever a conquistador named Hernan Cortez sails from Spanish Cuba to Mexico to conquer the Aztec Empire. Now, you have to understand the Aztec Empire at this point in history is going to be one of the most sophisticated, well thought out, well planned empires in the whole world. Very advanced. So the conquistador Cortez is going to want that, because if you can find a place in the New World where your capital city is already set up for you, that's a bunch of work you don't have to do. Also, there's a lot of gold there. So Cortez is going to use clear unrest within the people whenever he crosses Mexico and goes into what will eventually be Mexico City, the city of Tenochtitlan. He is going to hear different people talking about how they don't like their leader. And one of them is going to be named Melanson. So what Cortez does is he stirs up a rebellion, and then he waits for an excuse to capture and kill Moctezuma II. Whenever Cortez set Montezuma up, his plan worked. So he waited for a group to attack some of his men, and then he goes into Mexico City and he arrests Montezuma and brings him back to their camp and is going to hold him there as captive. The only thing is, once Montezuma gets there, he's very friendly with them. So it's not like he's really even a captive at all. He teaches them games, he teaches them songs. Eventually, Moctezuma is going to be executed. All right, so Tenochtitlan, just remember that is the Aztec capital, and it's the capital of the Mexica people. And that is going to be the new capital of New Spain. That is what Cortez is going to capture and conquer for Spain. This is his route. He starts and moves along, marches his way to here. Okay, so this is just a picture of the city of Tenochtitlan. And like I said, it's the most spectacular city in the world at its time. So next in 1519, Ferdinand Magellan is going to circumnavigate the globe. That means he sailed all the way around the world. This is one of his maps, or a map of his journey, rather. The next thing that happened in 1519 that we really want to focus on is something that happened specifically with Texas, and that is Alonso Alvarez de Pineda, we just say Pineda, maps the Texas coast. He was searching for a northern waterway to the Pacific to get to places more quickly. He sailed from Jamaica. He's going to sail along the coast and map it. So he ends up being a cartographer. As he maps the coast, he will go inland a little bit anytime there's a river and explore some. He's going to explore what he calls the Las Palmas, and then eventually the Rio de las Palmas, and that is what we think is the Rio Grande. Pineda and his crew were the first people to see Texas and to see the Texas coast, and his map is the first written record about Texas. So it is the first documented piece of history about Texas. This is a copy of the map that he made. You can see parts of it seem like they're a little bit upside down, but if you were to twist this view, then it would look pretty similar to maps that we see today, with Florida, the Yucatan Peninsula, and even Cuba that's over here. In 1527, a guy named Pánfilo de Narváez is going to try to go and find gold in Florida. So he reaches the Floridian coast in about April of 1528. So it takes him a little while to get there. He is looking for Apalache. That is a city of gold. So someone that is on the ship with him, that is on this expedition, is a conquistador. He is a new part of the nobility. His name is Alvar Núñez Cabeza de Vaca. We just call him Cabeza de Vaca. Now, Cabeza de Vaca was shipwrecked on this expedition with Narváez, and he and his men are going to try to escape the different Native Americans that have attacked this large company of men. There's about 300 people in this expedition. Only 80 of them survive. And whenever he builds these rafts, Cabeza de Vaca and his small party that do survive, whenever they finally make it to an island and crash land on Galveston, they are going to end up wandering for a while. So they'll try to survive, they'll trade with the Caddo a little bit, but eventually there's only going to be 3 or 4 of them left. By that time, they're going to be taken captive by the Karankawa Native Americans on the coast. Whenever this happens, they wander around Texas for years, and Cabeza de Vaca is able to keep a record, a journal of the things that happen to him and the people that he meets and the culture of these Karankawa Native Americans. This is going to be one of the best records that we have of the Karankawa and even the Cojutecan. After 8 years, they're going to be rescued by what's called Spanish slavers. He will end up going back to Mexico City, and whenever he does, he's going to explain what happened to him, and a guy named Fray Marco de Niza is going to get clearance to go and look for the 7 cities of gold. The name for these 7 cities of gold is Cibola. So Cabeza de Vaca is going to report tales of gold cities in the northern mountains to the viceroy, which is a royal governor of New Spain. The viceroy is going to send Fray Marco de Niza to go and find Cibola. That happens in 1539. And it just so happens that they decide to send Estevanico with Fray Marco de Niza. Estevanico is a companion to Cabeza de Vaca. Really, his name means that he is a slave. So he is sent with Fray Marco to go and find Cibola. Fray Marco goes to New Mexico to find these cities, and really what they're looking at is going to be a bunch of pueblos or adobe homes. Whenever they roll up on these cities, Estevanico is going to end up being killed by the Zuni Indians. So Fray Marco is going to go back to Mexico City, and he is going to claim he has seen cities of gold. He thinks that the Zuni Indians are protecting something. He thinks that they are guarding cities of gold, when really they're just protecting their families. Fray Marco de Niza will serve as a guide for the big guns. And what I mean by that is the conquistador of conquistadors, and that is Coronado. So Coronado is going to gather a huge Spanish force of soldiers. He is going to end up taking this huge force to go and conquer Cibola. Coronado was chosen to command, and Deniza, like I said, will serve as a guide. They set off in the spring of 1540, and they defeat the Zuni Indians. They did not find any gold, though. All they found was adobe houses, and Coronado is going to send Deniza back to Mexico City. Coronado is going to continue to search for the cities of gold, and he sends groups out in different directions. They split their party. Some of these people will venture out into the area where the Grand Canyon is, just like Cabeza de Vaca was the first person to set foot from Europe on Texas soil. These people will be the first Europeans to see the Grand Canyon. Also, they're going to find the Tigwa in the east, and the Tigwa Indians are going to have a person named the Turk living with them. He is going to tell tales of Quivira, which is one of the cities of gold. Coronado planned an expedition for the spring, and during the winter, the Spaniards are going to run out of supplies, then force the Tigwa to give them supplies. And they set out for Quivira in 1541. They traveled through the Texas Panhandle. They traveled across the Llano Estacado. They saw buffalo. They saw Paladero Canyon, crossed the Red River. Then they headed north to Kansas and found the city of Quivira. The Turk was trying to keep his people alive. So he almost used this trip as a diversion to keep the Spaniards from eating all of the supplies that his people had saved up for winter. So the Turk is going to lead them to grass huts and corn. It's not going to be an actual city of gold. The Turk is going to be forced by the Tigwa Indians to tell them this fictional story, so they will leave. So Coronado returns to Mexico City in 1542. Hernando de Soto and Moscoso Alvarez. These are going to be two explorers who are going to go through East Texas. De Soto sought one of the cities of gold in the southeastern United States, but on his travels, he is going to die early. He will die of a fever in 1542. Moscoso took command over the expedition. They did not find any treasure, so they headed back to Mexico City. They traveled through East Texas and met the Caddo Indians, or the Caddo culture. They ran out of food, went back to the Mississippi River, and returned to Mexico City in 1543. Now, something about the Caddo Native Americans is they are going to be called the Hasinai. They're also going to be called Tejas, and that means friends. So they're really saying, hey, we would like to trade with you. We want to be friends so that we can trade with you, because that's kind of their thing. So the Spaniards thought for the longest time that the name of their people were the Tejas. So really, they're just the Caddo or the Hasinai. All right, so something that is reported by Moscoso is going to be this black goo that bubbles and seeps up from the ground. This is going to be very, very important to Texans in the future, but it's not really beneficial to Moscoso at the time. All of these expeditions that go out to find cities of gold, they will fail. And Spanish officials are going to completely lose interest in northern New Spain, which happens to be Mexico and Texas. The rumors of gold are going to continue to float around among Spanish society. So in the late 1500s, those tales are going to draw explorers back to New Spain to try to find these cities of gold. This will lead them to New Mexico. There's a new king of Spain at this time. And that king will have a new purpose. So instead of looking for gold so much, he's also going to send different expeditions out in order to colonize regions of New Spain. This king's name was Philip II. So he sends Juan de Onate to partially lead an expedition to search for gold, but the second part of that mission is to colonize the Pueblo region of New Mexico. He's going to lead those settlers. They're going to be people from Spain that will go and live in New Spain. in order to claim land for King Philip II. One of the things that they claim is the whole Rio Grande as Spanish territory for King Philip II. Later, Onate is going to set out to try to find Quivira after he gets his people settled on the Rio Grande and in the Pueblo region of New Mexico, and he is going to travel the same route as Coronado. He still will not find any treasure. He still will not find any cities of gold. So, lack of treasure in Texas is going to cause the Spanish to lose interest in the northern parts of Mexico, which is Texas, for the next 80 years. The effects of Spanish exploration. It's going to give Spain a strong claim to the area. That means they can say, hey, this is ours. They're also going to gain knowledge about Texas land and the people living there. So they'll know the geography and also those cultures that were living in Texas at the time. Texas, though, is going to be a place that is not going to be a place where the Spanish are really going to set up colonies for a while. It's going to serve as a buffer zone. That means a space between the Spanish settlements that will be in Mexico and the Native Americans. Now, something that is a negative effect is going to be the spread of diseases to the Native Americans. It's going to cause epidemics. So the diseases are going to be brought from the Europeans. They're carriers. They didn't know that they were carrying different diseases like smallpox and chickenpox and yellow fever. They didn't know that they were carrying these different diseases because they weren't sick. There were diseases that they had antibodies for that they carried to the New World and gave to these Native Americans unknowing. And the Native Americans caught those diseases and then didn't have the antibodies in their systems to fight that off. The spread of diseases is going to be an issue for these Native Americans and how a lot of them are going to die out, how their cultures disappear. All right, so this next thing is called the Columbian Exchange. The Columbian Exchange is a transfer. So something that goes back and forth is the transfer of plants, animals, and diseases between Europe and the Americas. So those diseases we just talked about that came from the Europeans, they'll bring those over to the New World, and the people living in the New World will catch those. But also they're going to bring different plants with them that will be new items, new foods, new medicines that people that are living in the New World can use. And then the same goes the other way. So the Europeans will bring back home different plants that will be new food, it will be new medicines, even cocoa will be brought back to the Europeans. They hadn't tasted chocolate until they went to the New World and found that new plant. Also, animals will be brought back and forth from one world to the other. And this is also going to be a transfer of ideas. So the transfer of ideas is really one of those big things that we need to think about. What ideas might the Europeans bring over to the Native Americans, and what ideas might the Native Americans have that will be brought back to Europe? One of the things that the Spaniards will bring to the New World is Mustangs. That is a breed of horse. And in the 1600s, the Native Americans are going to start acquiring horses from trading with the Europeans and also raids. That means they'll go in and they'll steal these horses. They will be very valuable for the Plains Native Americans. And the reason why is because, did you see how the Comanche train their horses to work with them in battle and to work with them on hunts? That's why it's going to be so important. The Spanish first recorded seeing Apache Indians riding horses in 1659. At first, the Apache and the Spanish were actually kind of friendly, which is amazing because the Apache are very aggressive. But when it comes down to it, in the end, the Apache just wanted something from the Spanish just wanted something from the Apaches, and then after that was over, the friendship is gone. As the Spanish started to settle in the Pueblo region with Onate, the Apache saw them as enemies because they started moving into their homelands. Okay, this is the part of the video or your notes where you're going to have to create a map. So this map It has the different American Indian villages that you'll need to be able to record. And then you're going to color code this part here and make your map look like this. You don't have to color the background with green like I did because you're going to want to add some more to this map here in a minute. Make sure that you write the captions and that you color code things exactly the way that you see it on the screen here. All right, so after you're done with that, you'll want to map the French explorer's route. There was only really one French explorer named La Salle who came to Texas. We'll talk about him here in just a minute, but first you're going to want to add this to the map that you just created. Here are the different items that you are going to want to put on this map. Make sure that it looks like this. Now, mine is not typed like yours is because this is an older version, so just use the boxes instead of putting dots for the colors. You don't have to worry about this page 117. We're not using the textbooks anymore. Make sure that you label the Mississippi River here. And then all of these other things you can just draw circles for. The French challenge. This is going to challenge the territorial rights of who owns what in Texas. Do the Spanish own all of Texas or do the French own part of it? So the first explorer that, well, really the only explorer that will be the French explorer for Texas is going to be La Salle. He is going to set out on an expedition in 1682, and he's going to end up canoeing down the Mississippi River to the Gulf of Mexico. He will claim all of the land drained by the Mississippi. That means all of the land that is going to touch the Mississippi River and all the offshoots of rivers that tie into the Mississippi River, all those creeks, everything that drains out of the Mississippi River and everything that ties into the Mississippi River. All the land that touches that, he claimed it for France. And he called it Louisiana. So the name of it will be Louisiana. He names it for his king. That is King Louis, or Louis, the 14th. So that XIV, that is a symbol for the 14th. Now his expedition, he's going to go on another one. So he's going to try to go back to all this land that he has started exploring. In 1684, he is going to miss the mouth of the Mississippi River, and he's going to land at a place called Matagorda Bay. When he lands at Matagorda Bay, he is going to set up a fort there. It's going to be called Fort St. Louis, and several people will be with him that will try to settle this almost as a mini colony. But they want to establish a fort, and a fort is a military holding. So that means it's a place where you can hold your ground, you can defend yourself. There's several houses at this fort, and it has 5 rooms in the fort. So there's several houses that are going to surround it, and there will be 5 rooms in the fort. La Salle is going to leave for 6 months though. He establishes this place and then leaves. He goes to find the Mississippi River. The fort is constantly attacked by Karankawa. This is not going to be good because it's supposed to be a fort, something that's defendable, and they are not doing a good job of defending this place and their people. So the fort is going to fail. Despite its failing, the fort is going to give France a claim to land in Texas, and it challenges the Spanish claim in Texas. So this is where he is going to miss the mark. This is the Mississippi River here. This is where he will land or crash. The shipwreck is going to be the La Belle shipwreck because the name of his ship is called the La Belle. So he's going to travel this way and try to reach the Mississippi River. But the people will be so angry that some people are going to follow him and they are going to kill him. All right, so this is another map, kind of shows you where things happen in a different light. After La Salle sets up Fort St. Louis, the Spanish will begin to search for La Salle because the Spanish have been challenged. So they have to find the person who is in charge and meet that challenge. Their attempts to find him, though, are going to fail because his own people have killed him by this point. But they learn more about the geography of Texas, especially East Texas. And Alonso de Leon, the governor, and Damien Massenet are going to find two French survivors of Fort St. Louis, and they are going to explain what happened there. Now, they also meet the Caddo, which again I called the Hasanai. The Spanish called them Tejas, which means friends.